Happy Monday, SCASED members and members of the CED network. I hope your week is off to a great start. For those of you who may not know me, my name is Bernie Mazik, and I'm the President and CEO of the South Carolina Association for Community Economic Development. I'm coming to you by video today because this week the South Carolina General Assembly is moving very rapidly in an unprecedented and historic way to impact your voice and your vote in South Carolina 2026 general election. Last week, Friday, with only a day's notice, I attended and testified at the Constitutional Law Subcommittee of the South Carolina Judiciary Committee. The purpose of the hearing was to take up hurriedly introduced legislation to move the primary election for U.S. congressional candidates from June 9th to August 25th. Additionally, the subcommittee also discussed legislation that was introduced the day before on newly drawn congressional district maps that South Carolinians would be asked to use to elect their representative to the U.S. House of Representatives. The new maps will drastically change congressional district lines, moving thousands of residents from congressional districts that they voted in for years to new congressional districts. An example of this is to drastically change and break up the current 6th congressional district held by Congressman Jim Clyburn. The subcommittee chairman opened the meeting with a statement that read, "The goal of this hearing was to introduce new congressional maps that will result in 7 Republican representatives to the U.S. House of Representatives out of the 7 congressional districts in South Carolina." Now, in case you may think this is a normal process for congressional map making in South Carolina, it is not. Normally, congressional maps are drawn after the 10-year census count, which is scheduled for 2030. On Friday, the subcommittee voted in favor of the legislation to move the congressional primary from August 25th at an additional cost and unplanned cost to South Carolina taxpayers of approximately $2.5 million. This cost does not include the additional costs to local county election staff and poll workers who will work during the regular primary of June 9th and this additional primary on August 25th. The subcommittee adjourned before considering legislation to redraw the lines of the 7 congressional districts. But tomorrow morning at 9 a.m., the Congressional Constitutional Law Subcommittee will meet to consider more than likely pass the new congressional maps, which I attached to this email. Then at 10:30 a.m. tomorrow morning, the full Judiciary Committee of the South Carolina House will meet to consider and more than likely pass legislation that will move the congressional primary from June 9th to August 25th. This will happen despite the fact that mail-in ballots have already been mailed out to South Carolina voters and over 300 ballots have already been returned from voters to the South Carolina Elections Committee to be counted during this cycle. Additionally, the full Judiciary Committee will vote on the new proposed congressional maps. Most South Carolinians, and especially our CED network, are unaware that this process is underway and have not reflected on the impact that these changes will have on the congressional districts they and you will ultimately vote in, and ultimately for whom they and you will be voting for Congress. I believe this process is rushed, unjust, and unnecessarily complex, and without our network's full knowledge and of its implications. Many of you know that I am an ordained deacon in the United Methodist Church, and as a minister of the gospel, I often look to Scripture for guidance. In the Old Testament, the prophet Micah declares, "He has told you, human one, what is good and what the Lord requires from you, to do justice, embrace faithful love, and walk humbly with your God." As a basic standard of common decency, these behaviors should be adhered to. But it is my humble opinion that this mid-decade redrawing of congressional districts is not just, nor merciful, nor an expression of humility. You, our CED network, and all South Carolina citizens are preparing to participate in the state's general election with information that's been presented to us for months. We're only 26 days from the scheduled elected primary, which currently includes the congressional primary. Disrupting a congressional primary process, which traditionally has a very low voter participation rate, will further negatively impact voter participation and sow distrust in the electoral process. If you believe this change in the congressional primary date and new congressional maps are unfair, unjust, and unnecessary, I encourage you to contact your state legislator, especially your state senator, and ask them to keep the current primary election, that schedule in place, and the current congressional maps, keep those in place. You can click on the link in this email to find your South Carolina state senator. I've had the good fortune to work with members of the South Carolina General Assembly for years, and have found many of them to work very cooperatively with us and introducing and passing bipartisan legislation that supports our network. I'm looking forward to that time when we can once again see the General Assembly that works in a bipartisan manner and works cooperatively with us and hears the voice of South Carolinians to put in place the policies that will positively impact all of us. I hope you continue to have a great day, and let's continue to work towards a South Carolina where all prosper. Thank you, and have a good day.